Honourable for St. James North.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We on this side are, of course, very happy to debate this most important aspect of government and state funding, because certainly before 2 years ago, both political parties were added them on the issue of education being sacrosanct to the human development and human capital of Barbados. I mean, we agree that, and I believe we still agree, that education is a fundamental human right and contributes significantly to the realization of other rights. The UNESCO position paper on education post-2015, Mr. Chairman, which I don't know if it is a document of the House. If it isn't, I will make it a document of the House, speaks to that issue. You know, we have to agree that even before the coming into effect of adult suffrage, our education was advanced in terms of the other Caribbean countries. I mean, we have to recognize the role of the church, especially the Anglican Church and the other churches in terms of education, even though it is very arguable that the education supplied by the church schools was to keep, you know, the majority black race subservient and in the position we were in at the time. Then, of course, we had ministerial government and the Right Excellent National Hero, Sir Grantley Adams, being head, and within his first cabinet, we had a Minister of Education, I believe it was Hilton Vaughan, and monies, of course, allocated to education, a lot of money to develop the black people of this country. Traditionally, Mr. Chairman, since independence, certainly, the governments of Barbados, up to this time, have generally allocated between 20 and 23% of the government's budget towards education and the development of education in this country. The reality of the situation, Mr. Chairman, is using the mathematical guidelines that now only about 11% of total government expenditure is allocated to education, down 50% from what it used to be under the Barrow, certainly, and Tom Adams administrations. And that is a serious undermining of education and shows really and truly what this government is thinking in terms of the continued development of our human resources in this country. Education has created the black middle economic class in this country. We're adding them on that. And even though, yes, I agree that the same UNESCO paper, which I quoted, position paper on education post-2015, does speak towards a 6% that countries should aim towards allocating 6% of their gross national product to education. It also speaks towards governments and countries allocating about 20% of their government budget towards education, prioritizing groups that are most in need. And that is not the case when we examine these estimates. One of the goals of the Ministry of Education, as stated, is to ensure high-quality, free education for all from preschool to tertiary education. And that is, again, Mr. Chairman, being undermined and has been undermined again for the last 2 years since it was announced in the August 2013 budget presentation by the Minister, Honorable Minister of Finance, that university students will now have to pay tuition fees at our University of the West Indies. we disagree fundamentally on this position. The fact of the matter, again, is that the Ministry of Education actually spent $30 million less this current financial year than what had been approved in this Parliament at this time last year in these same estimates. There's a continuing decline in the funding provided for education by the government, and this really and truly makes a mockery of the statement in the Democratic Labour Party's performance booklet of 2008-2012, which quotes the Honourable Minister of Education as saying that education is the greatest liberating force in human life and that investment in youth must be paramount, both in terms of education and health, of course. And, you know, we speak again about a lot of words, a lot of rhetoric, but the action and the money allocated doesn't speak towards that. You know, but the whole issue here is that this government really and truly has no strategy for taking this country forward, no national development strategy. The previous Barbados Labour Party administration spoke towards making Barbados the smallest developed country in the world by 2015. That was the goal and the focus of the Barbados Labour Party last administration, and it was moving towards that, and it was focusing towards that, had national development strategy plan and all of that. And again, we have some people, and must commend the Barbados Entrepreneurial Foundation in this respect, that wishes to make Barbados the #1 entrepreneurial hub in the world by 2020. That was their aim. We're extremely far from that aim under this Democratic Labour Party government. What is the relationship, for instance, of the Ministry of Education to Barbados Entrepreneurship Foundation? We heard the Honourable Minister of Education speak about how, you know, the government's aim is to promote entrepreneurship in Barbados. Again, let us back that with the finances. Let us don't only speak these words. And, you know, countries in the world that have advanced from developing country status to developed country status, small island states such as Singapore, which we use as an example in a lot of cases, as a country that has moved forward, have created a national development strategy. But wait, it's going where it wants to locate itself in the world, and it has moved then its educational policy within the context of that national development strategy. But if this government doesn't have a national development goal and is just seeking to put plaster over wounds continuously and react to situations and not take a lead as to where it wants to go, well, therefore, the educational policy will be absent as well. And are we, for example, prepared to provide what it takes to make Barbados the scientific and technological capital of this region? Are we prepared to seek to move and to give the support of our scientists and to create science parks maybe within our university system and to create a new area of development and the economy for our citizens so that they can continue to have an improved quality of life which they were prone to having before 2009 came into play.
Remember, 5 minutes.
You know, Mr. Chairman, we have, for example, I mean, the minister spoke about it, the ministry also has a science and innovation compartment of it, but that is treated like a third cousin, I would want to say. There's no separate permanent secretary, no separate administrative office within the ministry. Last year, or this current financial fiscal year, only $500,000 was allocated to that. This year, well, $750,000 has been allocated, but is that sufficient to advance the science and technological potential of Barbados? We must develop in our submission and educational policy whereby our citizens, after 15, 18 years of schooling, ought to be able to create their own jobs, their own employment, become their own entrepreneurs rather than to be job seekers and to only aim for a government job even after they have a university degree in a lot of cases. We need to introduce entrepreneurship as a study, innovation as studies from primary school level. We need to place more emphasis on foreign languages. We are surrounded in Barbados by a lot of Spanish countries, by Latin American countries, by South American countries, which has Spanish as their first language. We have to create and facilitate the opportunities for our young people from primary school level to have the chance and the potential to go and get jobs in these places with big economies and ours, larger populations. But that could only be done with the initiative of government in creating the opportunities for advancement of entrepreneurship and foreign language study as a matter of policy. The Right Honourable Member for St. Peter spoke today about the introduction of the Barbados Labour Party, his last Barbados Labour Party administration of registered retirement savings plans, introducing that as a way to create a means whereby people could save to invest in their future education of their children, maybe at tertiary level. The Barbados Labour Party manifesto at page 50 speaks even further than that. I would want to suggest, for example, too, that we can give tax incentives, tax allowances to the creation of life insurance policies for our children, which would mature when they age 18, which they can use for educational funding at tertiary level. But here we have a situation where right now the government, the Ministry of Finance, can't even refund people's income tax returns, the refunds that are due and owing for almost a year now. So I have my serious doubts. I mean, the government is always asking for suggestions. I have my serious doubts whether the government would even take what we say here seriously. But surely you have now caused Barbadians to have to pay tuition fees, create a situation where investment in life insurance policies for our children, those who could afford it, would be a tax incentive, a tax allowance, and that is the kind of incentive that the Right Honourable Member for St. Peter is speaking about. I see that the Democratic Labour Party manifesto, the last one, in fact, promised to introduce an income tax credit of up to $5,000 on the interest on loans.
I think you should wrap up first of all, and I think you need to be relevant to the head that we are debating.
But I thought I am being relevant.
I can't determine relevance.
But we're speaking towards educational policy.
Yes.
I appreciate you allowing me to wrap up.
You should wrap up,
point,
please.
That the Democratic Labour Party manifesto promises that it would introduce an income tax credit of up to $5,000 on the interest on loans sourced from the Student Revolving Loan Fund and in respect of tertiary education costs and training at overseas internationally recognized institutions. And, Mr. Chairman, we have not heard one single word about that policy or the creation of that financial device since the general elections 2 years ago. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will come back later.